A march into hell's furnace under a merciless Philippine sun on April 10, 1942. Private First Class Irvin Scott staggered forward, his boots caked in dust and blood, as Japanese bayonets prodded him like cattle. "Water, please," he rasped, but the guard's response was a rifle butt to his ribs, crumpling him into the dirt. Around him, 75,000 Filipino and American soldiers, emaciated shadows of the warriors who held Bataan for 99 grueling days, trudged 65 miles toward an uncertain fate. Sharks of thirst gnawed their throats. Dysentery twisted their guts. And random executions punctuated the air like thunderclaps. Scott, a Marine from Philadelphia, watched a Filipino comrade collapse, only to be beheaded on the spot for lagging. This wasn't surrender. It was a descent into barbarity, where defiance flickered in stolen glances and whispered oaths. As bodies piled along the roadside, the Bataan Death March etched itself into history not as defeat, but as a testament to unbreakable spirits amid the Pacific War's darkest hour. But how did these allies, forged in fire, end up in this crucible of cruelty? The seeds of the Bataan ordeal were sown in the smoke of Pearl Harbor. On December 7, 1941, Japanese Zeros rained hell on Hawaii's naval base, crippling the U.S. Pacific Fleet and claiming 2,403 American lives. Barely 24 hours later, Imperial Japanese forces, emboldened by their axis pact with Germany and Italy, struck the Philippines. A U.S. Commonwealth since 1898, Manila's skies darkened with bombers. Clark Field's runways cratered under ordnance. General Douglas MacArthur, the flamboyant commander of U.S. Army forces in the Far East, USAFFE, watched his Air Force evaporate in a single day, his planes destroyed on the ground due to a fateful delay in response. The Philippines, an archipelago of 7,000 islands, was strategically vital. A gateway to Southeast Asia's oil and rubber resources Japan craved for its war machine. MacArthur's forces numbered 130,000 to 31,000 Americans and 100,000 Filipinos, many from the Philippine Scouts and Commonwealth Army. But they were undermanned, under-equipped, and under-trained. The Filipinos, led by President Manuel Quezon, had mobilized in July 1941 under U.S. oversight. But their troops wielded outdated Enfield rifles and lacked artillery. American units, like the 31st Infantry Regiment and 4th Marine Regiment, were seasoned, but spread thin. Japanese General Masaharu Hama, a cultured officer nicknamed the Poet General for his haiku, commanded the 14th Army, 65,000 battle-hardened veterans, fresh from China. Landing at Lingayen Gulf on December 22, 1941, they sliced southward like a katana through bamboo. MacArthur, adhering to War Plan Orange, ordered a retreat to the Bataan Peninsula, rugged 25-mile-wide finger of land, jutting into Manila Bay. "We shall fight on the beaches, in the fields," he declared, echoing Churchill, but reality bit harder. By January 2, 1942, Manila fell without a fight, declared an open city to spare civilians. Evacuating to Bataan, the Allies crammed into a volcanic jungle fortress. Mount Natives peaks, malaria-infested swamps, and beaches mined with barbed wire. Supplies were botched depots, abandoned in haste, left behind mountains of rice and canned goods. Rations halved to 1,000 calories daily. Carabao stew, monkey meat, and iguanas became staples. "Half rations mean half strength," griped Sergeant Ramon Bagatsing, a Filipino scout. Diseases ravaged dengue, beriberi, and dysentery felled thousands. Yet, under Major General Jonathan Wainwright's tactical command, MacArthur fled to Corregidor Island on March 11, famously vowing, "I shall return." They held. The Battle of Bataan erupted on January 7, 1942, as Hama's forces hammered the Abuque Lina defensive trench from Manila Bay to the mountains. Filipino divisions, like the 41st under Brigadier General Vicente Limda, 1st Filipino West Point graduate, repelled initial assaults with enfilading fire. Lim, a stoic leader, rallied his men. "We fight for our homes, our families." American tanks from the 192nd Battalion, commanded by Colonel Theodore Wickard, ambushed Japanese columns, their M3 Stuarts belching shells into enemy ranks. But Japanese air superiority Zeros strafing supply lines turned the tide. By January 22, the Allies fell back to the Orion-Bagok line, a narrower front. Pockets of heroism shone. At the Battle of the Points, January 23 to 29, Filipino scouts and U.S. Marines repelled amphibious landings, bayoneting invaders in hand-to-hand combat. Corporal Jose Calugas, a Filipino mess sergeant, earned the Medal of Honor for manning an abandoned cannon under fire, blasting Japanese boats. Starvation gnawed deeper. Horses were slaughtered. Roots dug up. Malaria claimed 500 daily. Hospitals overflowed with skeletal figures. Hama, expecting quick victory, faced attrition to his troops, succumbed to tropical ills, morale dipping. The final assault came April 3, 1942, Good Friday offensive. Japanese artillery pulverized lines. Infantry swarmed with tanks. Mount Samet fell April 6, splitting defenses. Wainwright radioed Washington. Situation deteriorating rapidly. On April 9, Bataan's 99th Day Major General, Edward P. King, Jr., left in command, surrendered 78,000 troops at Lamau. "I am forced to take this action," he told Hama's aide, tears in his eyes. It was the largest U.S. surrender since the Civil War. Corregidor held until May 6, but Bataan's fall sealed the Philippines' doom. Some 2,000 escaped to Corregidor by boat. Others hid in jungles, forming guerrilla bands like the Hukbalahap Filipino communists, who harried Japanese occupiers. Surrender brought no relief, only horror. On April 9, prisoners assembled at Mariveles, Bataan's southern tip. The march started April 10. Groups of 100 to 1,000 herded north along National Road 7, a dusty sun-baked path through rice paddies and villages. Destination San Fernando, 65 miles away, then rail to Camp O'Donnell. Temperatures soared to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, humidity choked lungs, guards battle-weary, and resentful of Bataan's resistance vented fury. "Baka yar, idiot," they snarled, clubbing. Atrocities mounted immediately. In Pantingan River, Suji ordered 350 to 400 Filipino officers massacred, beheaded, or bayoneted in a ravine. They surrendered honorably. Survivor Lieutenant Colonel Ernesto Rufino later testified, but vengeance ruled. Dehydration killed fastest. Prisoners licked dew from leaves. Some drank from carabao wallows, contracting dysentery. Guards denied artesian wells, slashing canteens. "One sip, and you're shot," barked a sergeant. Beatings were random. For falling out, speaking, or possessing Japanese items. Looted as souvenirs. Teeth were smashed for gold fillings. Rings cut from fingers. The sun treatment was infamous. Prisoners forced to sit hatless in blazing heat, blistering scalps. At Balanga, thousands crammed into a schoolyard without shade or latrines, feces and urine pooled, breeding flies. Food, sporadic rice balls, or nothing. American Captain John Coleman recalled. Men ate grass, roots, anything. Filipinos suffered disproportionately, viewed as inferiors by Japanese racial ideology. Guards targeted them for bayonet practice. Villagers risking aid were executed. Yet, defiance sparked. Prisoners shared sips, carried comrades. Filipino civilians tossed food from bush mangoes, sugarcane, despite death threats. By San Fernando, April 15 to 17, survivors boarded boxcars 100 per car, like sardines in ovens. The 25-mile ride to Capas suffocated dozens, bodies unloaded like lumber. From Capas, a 7-mile hike to O'Donnell sealed the toll. Estimates vary. 5,000 to 18,000 Filipinos and 500 to 650 Americans died on the march, shot, beaten, or succumbed to exhaustion. At O'Donnell, a former Philippine Army camp turned hellhole, 26,000 more perished from disease in months. "It was worse than the march," said survivor Lester Tenney, a tank commander from Illinois. Tenney, beaten unconscious for hiding a ring, labored in Japanese mines until liberation. Irvin Scott, the Marine, endured 3 years in POW camps building airfields, surviving hellships bombed by Allies. "I prayed every step," he recalled in 2020, at 100. Ben Scarden, a Clemson professor, walked memorial marches into his 90s, honoring fallen comrades. Filipino survivors like Colonel Fidel Segundo rebuilt their nation. Guerrillas inspired by Bataan's stand waged asymmetric war, sabotaging supply lines, aiding MacArthur's 1944 return. News leaked slowly. In January 1944, escaped officers' affidavits reached Washington, igniting outrage. Life magazines fueled war bond drives. Propaganda posters depicted Japanese brutality. "Remember Bataan" became a rally cry, stiffening U.S. resolve. Post-war, Hama was tried for war crimes in Manila, convicted despite claims of unawareness. Executed April 3, 1946, Suji evaded capture until 1950, then vanished in Laos. The march highlighted Bushido's dark side, where surrender was dishonor, justifying cruelty. Today, the Bataan Memorial Death March at White Sands, New Mexico, draws thousands annually, rucking 26.2 miles in honor. Monuments. Bataan. Survivors' stories teach resilience. In Filipino-American ties, it's a bond of shared sacrifice, reminding that defiance outlives defeat. The march wasn't just suffering, it was a forge. From its ashes rose a fiercer Allied effort, culminating in Japan's 1945 surrender. As Scott said, "We walked through hell, but we came out stronger." Their steps echo eternal. A march not to death, but to enduring freedom.